Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. Dark Passage, 1946 novel. David Goodis. The story follows Vincent Perry, a man who escapes from San Quentin prison after being wrongfully convicted for murdering his wife. After his escape, he's taken in by Irene Jansen, a mysterious woman who believes in his innocence. With her help, he undergoes illegal plastic surgery to change his appearance and evade the police. As Perry tries to uncover who actually framed him, he navigates San Francisco's shadowy streets, haunted by paranoia, betrayal, and desperation. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel. The novel keeps a gritty tone and psychological intensity as Perry closes in on the truth while struggling to keep his new identity intact. Vincent Perry had nothing left, except the burning need to disappear. Framed for the murder of his wife, he'd spent years rotting in San Quentin, watching the walls close in, dreaming of the day he'd breathe free air again. When he finally escapes, it's not the world that welcomes him, but a city that wants to crush him, San Francisco, fog-drenched and full of shadows, where every corner could be a trap and every face might be the one to turn him in. But fate, fickle as it is, sends him a strange kind of ally, Irene Jansen, a beautiful young woman with secrets of her own. Her father had died in prison, another victim of justice gone wrong, and Irene saw something in Perry, not a killer, but a man running from a system that had already judged him guilty. She hides him, protects him, even arranges for something few would dare, a back-alley plastic surgeon, a reclusive artist of illegal transformation, to give Perry a new face and a second chance. As the bruises of surgery heal, so does Perry's plan for revenge. With a new identity, he begins to circle the life he lost, old acquaintances, bitter memories, and the people who had reasons to see him fall. The deeper he digs, the more dangerous it becomes. Friends vanish, enemies close in. Irene becomes both a lifeline and a mystery, as Perry tries to understand why she's risking everything for a man like him. And all the while, the city breathes down his neck, the long stairways, the flickering neon, the damp alleyways where anything can happen. In the end, Perry isn't just fighting for freedom. He's fighting for the truth, and maybe, if he's lucky, a sliver of redemption in a world that doesn't give many second chances. Sure. Here's a continuation of the story summary in a more detailed, narrative style, picking up as Vincent Perry begins his journey with a new face and new identity. After the brutal, backroom surgery that left him swollen and bandaged, Vincent hid in Irene's apartment, the city pressing in around him like a hunter waiting in silence. Every footstep in the hallway, every rustle of newspaper outside her window sent spikes of fear through him. The surgeon had warned him, no mirrors. No sudden movement, you'll look like a ghost for a while. As days passed, the swelling receded. His reflection, when he dared to glimpse it, was a stranger's face. And that was the point. Vincent Perry was dead. The man in the mirror was someone new. Now, it was time to find out who had killed his wife, and why they had pinned it on him. He moved through the city like a phantom, reaching out to those who had once been part of his life. The people he thought he could trust had turned cold, suspicious. Some were dead, some had disappeared, and some were clearly hiding something. One of them was Madge Rapf, a former flame with a twisted obsession and a sharper instinct than she let on. She had testified against him during the trial. Perry suspected she knew more than she had ever said. When he confronted her, the encounter was chilling, a dance of veiled threats and half-truths. Madge hinted at secrets buried under layers of lies. Perry left her apartment with more questions than answers, his hands shaking with the rage of betrayal. Meanwhile, Irene remained a constant, watching him, worrying for him, and offering warmth when the cold world outside threatened to harden him. There was a tenderness between them, fragile and unspoken. Two broken souls tethered by pain and circumstance. She asked him more than once, "What will you do when you find the truth?" Eventually, the pieces began to fall into place, and what emerged was a portrait of jealousy, manipulation, and the kind of quiet cruelty that only comes from those who once loved you. Perry wasn't just chasing the truth. He was stepping through a dark passage of the human heart, where justice and vengeance often look the same in the dim light. And when the final confrontation came, it wasn't with guns blazing or the police in hot pursuit. A realization that some truths come too late, and that escape doesn't always mean freedom. The city had changed since Vincent last walked its streets freely, or maybe it was Vincent who had changed. With his new face and new name, he wandered through familiar neighborhoods that now seemed alien, draped in fog and suspicion. He felt invisible but not invulnerable, always glancing over his shoulder, always one misstep away from being dragged back to the nightmare he had just escaped. His next move was to track down George Felsinger, a quiet jazz pianist and one of the only friends who had stood by him during the trial. Vincent had once trusted George with everything, but in the years since, the lines between friend and informant had blurred in his mind. When he finally found George, the man seemed nervous, like someone waiting for a door to be kicked in. He insisted he'd kept quiet, but Vincent couldn't tell whether the fear in George's eyes came from guilt, or something worse. That same night, George was murdered, shot in his own apartment. The papers called it a robbery. Vincent knew better. Suddenly, everything was collapsing. George was silenced. Irene was in danger just by being near him. And the real killer, the one who had framed him, was still out there, moving freely through the city, maybe even watching him now. Vincent felt the old prison walls closing in again, only this time, they weren't made of concrete. They were made of doubt, fear, and time running out. He returned to Madge, more desperate now. She lived in a lush, sterile apartment high above the city, a place that looked like it belonged to someone who had won, but Madge hadn't won anything. She was restless, bitter, and hiding something deep behind those carefully painted eyes. Their conversation turned into an emotional standoff. Madge accused him of never loving her. He accused her of setting him up. She laughed, but her voice cracked, and her hands trembled around the stem of her wine glass. And then came the moment. The unspoken truth hung heavy between them. She had lied, twisted the story, played a part in the conviction that destroyed his life. Not out of hatred, but out of obsession. If she couldn't have him, no one would. Her betrayal wasn't cold, it was fiery, tangled in a love that had curdled into something cruel. Vincent left her apartment with a storm raging in his head. He couldn't kill her, he couldn't forgive her, but he couldn't stay. Not in this city, not with the ghosts piling up behind him. He returned to Irene one last time. The woman who had saved him, sheltered him, believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. They sat together in silence, the future stretching before them like a fog-covered bridge. He had to leave. He'd be hunted forever if he stayed. The kind of quiet, patient love he never thought he deserved. And so, with no real plan, no true freedom, but the faintest flicker of hope, Vincent Perry slipped out of San Francisco under the cover of night. A new man in a world that would never forget the old one.